At one point or the other, as a business owner, you're going to give a presentation. And no, I'm not talking about the speaking part of the presentation. Yes, I was talking earlier on that 75% of people are scared of public speaking. What I'm talking about today is the design of the presentation. Almost all of us have been through presentations. We've seen the different slide decks. I was about to say PowerPoint, but they said it would prove that I'm old. So the different slide decks. And a lot of them are boring. A lot of them do not communicate the information. A lot of them do not interact with the audience. A lot of them do not pull in the audience. And in this era of taking your business, we do a lot of presentations. We are going to present on Zoom. We're going to present in real life. So today's episode, in today's episode, we're going to talk about how to design better presentations. And who else is going to talk about that with me? With freelance presentation designer Kay Chan of Chimeric. So welcome to the show, Kay.
Thank you, Peter. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So can you just tell us about your journey? How did you end up doing presentation design?
Oh my goodness. This goes way back, actually. I will skip the details because um, let me just shorthand it for you. I grew up um, falling in love with the arts. So I was a tremendous illustrator, loved writing poetry. So everything that dealt with the arts, I was involved in. Um, during, you know, my elementary, high school years, that was pretty much all I did. And at one point or another, I fell into the digital age where everything was pretty much being done digitally. And still having the passion for the arts, I converted or transitioned my abilities onto more digital platforms such as, Photoshop and Corel Draw. Um, and from that point on, I just was completely intrigued with the ability to create something. And, as internet was just poking its head, I loved the idea of just being able to jump on a website and just seeing all these tremendous things being posted online. Um, so knowing that I have that passion and knowing that I wanted to pursue this as a career, you know, I buried myself in a lot of training materials, got myself involved in, I already had mentioned Photoshop and Corel, but those two applications were gateways to many, many more applications, such as Illustrator, InDesign, Quark Express, Dreamweaver, all sorts of things. I mean, I could list them forever. Um, and by the way, just so you know, people in the design spectrum are expected to know these applications, and most of them do. And for that matter, I do truly believe that people in this industry are severely underpaid, especially, especially in the corporate world. Um, but you know, how I got started was actually was really because I was self-taught in it. I pursued my passion in a way where I knew I had the talent for it. I knew I had the creativity. However, I decided not to go to college for, a higher education or to study these materials. Straight out of high school, I just jumped into any type of design work that I could land in, and I did that for, I guess a decade and a half. And, I started to regret my decision, not going to college. Just because just because it was low paying jobs after low paying jobs, and the jobs that I was really pursuing at the time didn't even take a glance at my resume, just because the first thing that they noticed was there weren't any, college credentials. Um, so I guess from within those decades, I just decided, hey, you know what? I'm just going to keep doing this, and I'm just going to build a bomb portfolio. And eventually, my goal was to, you know, find this corporate client that find this corporate company that is going to see my portfolio and will not even bother with the shortcomings of with my shortcomings of not having a college degree. Um, and that was how it went for several years until finally I was able to jump into, I was with the big fish and the whales of design. I started working for major design agencies and Fortune 500 companies such as CBS, Consigli, and Hasbro. Um, and it was from that point when I realized that, hey, you know what? I'm doing something right. I ventured from being just an entry level designer and I've climbed my way up to creative director. And, throughout that point, I figured, hey, you know what? There's not really a next step for me except to, start my own business. And it wasn't before my final year at Hasbro that I decided, hey, you know what? There's one other thing that I probably should learn, and it's a very niche market, which is presentation design. I learned everything that I had to learn about designing. The only thing that was really missing was the presentation part. And that was an entirely new space of its own. So it took me a while to acclimate to it, but eventually, I mean, I'd like to think that I acclimated to it a lot quicker than other designers would or than other people would, just because I had, the countless years of experience in other forms of design. I mean, we're talking about branding, we're talking about packaging, we're talking about what was it, print and digital marketing, 3D rendering, photography, all of those, every single bit of those aspects I incorporated into my presentation design company. Um, so with the forward thinking of, hey, this is going to be my next step, I pursued that prior to actually being laid off from Hasbro. I remember it was right around, right around COVID was when, all
Mm.
things just dipped down and, the company had massive layoff. It was a terrible time for a lot of people, but for me, it opened the door for, a fresh start, a new beginning. And that's essentially how I founded Chimeric Presentation.
That's an interesting story. So now, when you look through clients you've worked with, businesses you've worked with, why do you think presentations are important for businesses?
Oh my goodness, it's so important for so many businesses, especially those that go to events, goes to shows, even high level stuff where they do have to present statistics within their corporate board meetings. Having a presentation to showcase, having a presentation to support what it is that you're saying is very, very beneficial to a lot of people in any types of industry. This is one of the reasons why I jumped into this very particular niche market is because this is something that I find that is even more important than just regular design work. Um, Presentation, I would say, is almost at the same level as, say, a website, although it has a stronger presence because you get to choose who you're showing it to and it's always on hand. So when you're at, a convention, when you're listening to a speaker, that speaker's not going to point you to a website. He might at the end of the show, sure, but having a presentation, you get to say what it is that you need to say. You have a message that needs to be broadcasted. It's a very powerful tool to be able to have open ears listening to what it is that you have to say right then and there.
Interesting. So now for let's go into the details now. For businesses who make presentations, I'm sure you've seen a lot of them. What are
Oh
the
yeah.
most common mistakes you've seen them make when they are making these presentations?
Oh my God. So many. So many. Let's start off with, I'll give you three off the top of my head. All right. So, number one, um, a lot of people uh, in a lot of industries, um, they generally don't really know how to use PowerPoint. Um, or Keynote or Google Slides or any of those presentation tools. But let's just say universally, we're talking about PowerPoint. So many of them use PowerPoint the same way they would as a Word document. So have you ever, I mean, you've used the Word document before, and all you're seeing is letters, summary, things that are written down. Now, a lot of people who show me, a lot of my clients who send things to me, their first round of presentation, all it is just written text. And I've been to conventions where the speaker has all his audio, everything that he's saying, written down in his PowerPoint presentation as if it were subtitles. Um, Now, presentations aren't supposed to be used that way. They're used to help support your message. They're used to help people uh, you know, key in on the things that you're saying. They're also there to help people watch and listen to you while they have something, you know, to slightly distract them, but at the same time support your ideas. Now, that would be the proper way to use it is to have something designed and something, behind you that's helping you with delivering your message. Number two, so number one would be, they're using PowerPoint the same way they would use uh, Microsoft Word. Number
Yes.
two is using improper resolution images as part of the presentation. So a lot of people don't know this, that uh, the obvious thing is that, using low res images, it really is distracting when it comes to presentations. Um, Always have you know, the right size formatting, the right resolution of a photo if you are going to incorporate images into a PowerPoint, which I highly advise that you do. I mean, most presentations should have some type of visual to look at or very creative designs. Um, the part that people don't really know is that they use too high of a resolution. So a lot of times they think that higher is better. So I have clients who, with their first draft, they've put in an image that's about, 20 megabytes. Whereas, all you really need that will maximize and capitalize your screen space isn't going to be more than a megabyte. It really wouldn't be. Um, it's always great to have higher resolution than lower resolution, but a lot of people don't realize that PowerPoint, Keynote, uh, Google Slides, all of those, they don't render images that quickly. And especially if you want to be very dynamic with your presentations with, a lot of moving parts, a lot of transitions and things like that. PowerPoint does not have the horsepower to do that with very large file size images. So it's always great to downscale to the right level that you need and using those. Um, so that was number two. Number three, and this goes with a lot of corporate companies. Um, the number three fault that I see usually is that they assume that their design department is capable of delivering an efficient PowerPoint or presentation design. Truth be told, 95% of those design departments don't even use PowerPoint. I mean, I've been in that space. I've worked for several Fortune 500 companies. None of the design departments know how to use PowerPoint, at least not efficiently. They may be able to be, I don't, they may be able to, mess around with it and try to get something out there, but none of them are able to use it efficiently. And the reason for that is because, and I speak this from a personal space, the reason for that is because they don't see PowerPoint as a true design tool. So the same way they see the same way I see Canva, the same way a lot of other designers see Canva, that particular application isn't really a true design platform. However, if you're able to use it efficiently, then it might be just enough of what it is that you need to do. However, if you want something that is, powerful, something that you want designed specifically and you want done efficiently and you want done correctly, a lot of times you will have to outsource that to someone who is who specializes in presentation design.
Okay, so
That
the
would be
top three
number three.
mistakes. Yeah, so the top three is a lot of people end up using PowerPoint like Word, just putting the whole text and like subtitles on the presentation. A lot of people use the wrong resolution, too high or too low, too high making the presentation slow and too low making it appear bad. And the
Yeah.
third is assuming that their design department can deliver with PowerPoints. So I think those
Not
are
many, no. There's a very, very, and I mean extremely low percentage of corporate companies that have design departments that are capable of producing PowerPoint presentations efficiently.
okay. So now, for a business owner, you talked about being in different aspects of design, everything about doing everything about design before focusing on presentation design. So, how can understanding basic design principles improve communication through a presentation?
Um, The thing is that I carried a lot of different roles when I was working for corporate and while I was working for agencies. Being able to move around, being able to travel, seeing a lot of events, those absolutely helped me with the things that I needed to learn in, within the presentation world. Um, I didn't know it at the time, but, they became very, very helpful. But in terms of the design aspects of it, here's the thing, is that if you don't have the type of background that's similar to what I have, um, which obviously is, the creativity, the ability to, manipulate colors and, typography, just being able to live within the design space, then you're pretty much just a presentation developer. You're just someone who's able to move things around. A good way to look at this, or a good way to compare, is you've been on crappy websites and you've been on websites that have been designed. Obviously, there's a huge difference. Number one, a developed website has all the main functions that it needs to have. However, the thing is that it's not something great to look at. Do you get what I mean? So whoever built it did
Yeah.
not really have the creativity. They just had the knowledge to be able to put a website in place. Although it's just not not appealing, which is the last thing you want, especially when you want to put your brand out there. And then you take someone, say, similar to me, say someone, with my type of background, you go on to, a website that was designed rather than developed. Um, you will see that, it's engaging. It's, um, most often than not, it looks beautiful and looks well crafted. It looks like it was done with purpose. You know, the colors are true, the font sizing are correct, the navigation is proper. Things that developers don't really, take into account, whereas designers will.
Yeah. Okay. So, going forward, what's one simple trick, one simple design trick that you can suggest that can instantly make a presentation look much better?
I would say hire someone like me. I mean, there's not really a design trick. Designing is very all-encompassing, you know. Let me ask you, what type of computer do you use?
PC, the Dell.
So you use a PC, right? Now, when you ask someone who uses a Mac, right, why they use a Mac. So I use both because my clients need me to be able to shift between PCs and Mac. Um, but when I have a Mac, I also get an iPhone. I also get an iPad. I also get, an Apple monitor, and I also get, an iMac lab. I mean, I also get a Mac Pro laptop. And the reason why I do that is because I like the ecosystem and how well it communicates with one another. And if you've had experience with Macs, you'll know that, it has great convenience for you to be able to shift around projects and be able to move from one file to another you know, off of a handheld onto a laptop, onto a desktop, things like that. Well, if you think of design in that way, right? Because you cannot think of design like a PC where, hey, there's one thing that I can do with this and it's going to improve me and improve everything significantly. The thing about presentation design is more like, the ecosystem of Apple, is that all those things work well together to make that one thing work. So I really can't say yes, there's a one trick, there's a one hack to make a presentation better. There's, say, like 20 different things that you can do to make one thing better in a presentation or in any design. It really it comes down to just having the knowledge to be able to work within that space efficiently. Having the creativity helps too.
Okay, so I think at the end of the day, see different components come together. So now, when you look at a presentation and you go, oh, this presentation is amazing, this presentation is perfect. What are the essential components that presentation would have for you to arrive at that conclusion? Yeah.
Now, a great presentation are ones that deliver communication. Um, and being very concise with the message that's being delivered. So great presentation is usually something that, you know, number one, isn't distracting to what it is the speaker is saying. Having a person who can speak to the audience and being, very charming and, being very engaging with the audience, that helps a ton, you know, but also having something in the background to help support that, that's even better. But even when you know yourself that you're not a great um, speaker, like myself, I mean, the irony in what it is that I do, we spoke about this earlier, is that I am a terrible presenter. I have a fear of public speaking. Although I would be able to do that with the assistance of a great presentation behind me. Um, to what you were saying is that, a great presentation is one that helps clearly communicate your ideas. And really, it really depends on your idea. It really depends on the message that you're trying to get across. And ones that can do that very, very effectively is a great presentation. Never mind it looks great, never mind that it was, perfectly designed. However, it would help for it to be very, very, it would be designed very well. Um, but if you're able to just deliver your message with the support of a presentation design in the background, that would be a great one. That would be perfect.
Okay. So now, when you met with maybe a challenge of presenting complex information to through a presentation, how do you approach this so that you simplify the complex information in that presentation?
I come across a lot of very, very difficult presentations. A lot of my clients are actually PhDs. Um, and the and this is a little bit of profiling with them. Not everyone are like that. Just saying that the majority of the PhDs that come to me with to looking for my assistance, their original script will have so many scientific jargons, ones that I don't even understand. These are the situations where I need to sit down with them and talk to them and discuss with them because, speaking of these things, clearly, they know much more about it than I do. And what I want to do is understand what it is they're trying to present so that I can help support them. Um, and eventually understanding what it is that they're trying to get across. My designs end up being vastly different from what it was that they initially wanted. And the reason for that is because of the audience that they're trying to speak to. The question that usually arise would be, hey, your audience, what type of people are they? Are they investors? Are they just some Joe Schmo off the block? Are they, are they PhDs like yourself? Are they within your field as well? Because there's many different ways that we can attack this. But if we want to be delicate with it, let's just assume that everybody in that audience is me. And in order for you to be able to communicate with me, we'd have to simplify this a little bit so that all of these terms, all of these formulas are now we're now converting it into, marketing speech instead. Why is it what you do is beneficial to your audience versus what it is that you do and going into details about, the components or about, the effects of, this particular solution being mixed with this solution and what that becomes. Not too many people are very interested in that. A lot of people are interested with results, however, and I can deliver results.
Okay. So, you mentioned some tools earlier, but what are some user-friendly tools that business owners can use to create better presentations for their businesses?
There are a lot of things that people can use, but in terms of presentations specifically, you'd have to recognize that PowerPoint is king. Um, PowerPoint is the universal standard. It's hard for me to convey it to a lot of my clients who insist on using Google Slides, which is fine. That's fine to use. You will need internet connection to be able to use that. Um, there are people who want to use Keynote. Keynote is awesome too. The thing is that not everybody uses Keynote. I mean, we're talking about a measly, I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but we're talking about maybe less than 20% of the people out there are using Keynote. Whereas, I want to say like 75% out there are using PowerPoint. And being universally accepted helps with delivering your presentation only because, in case you ever need to share your work and in case you ever need to share your presentation, it can work conveniently. It can work universally with other people's computers. I tell this to a lot of my agency clients, whereas, you know, I tell it to my agency clients where, they would prefer to use Google Slides. I would tell them, listen, PowerPoint is, universally accepted. If you create a Google Slides deck and then you send it off to some corporate business, they eventually will probably have to, download and convert it into PowerPoint instead, just so they can try to read it properly. And most of the time, that conversion is never 100%. We're talking
Yeah.
about a lot of, jumping typographies. We're talking about like, um, I want to say animations that will go wrong. And eventually you're actually doing more harm than good. It's almost embarrassing, really, if you send out something that's non-universal to, to a client that is using, PowerPoint, and they open it up and they see this, a bunch of gibberish on screen rather than, what it is that you intended to present. It's rather embarrassing and it doesn't look good for your brand.
Okay. So now for these days, because of the remote work and everything, in those days we only used to present on the computer in front of a projector or whatever. But these days you have people on in person doing presentations. You have people doing virtual presentations through Zoom and so on, like we are doing now. And we have other people who are doing both. Some people are online, some people are offline. So, are there any ways you have to modify presentations to match these different environments, or can you use the same presentation for all in person and virtual?
Absolutely not. So one of the first few criterias or one of the first few questions that I ask my clients, first and foremost, is how will this be presented? Some will say, "Hey, I want it converted into a PDF afterwards and be have it be able to have it distributed via email or via however, like a booklet or something, right?" And then others would say, oh, I'm going to speak to a live audience with a screen behind my back, right? Or we have this other thing where it's this massive grand event where all we're doing is just showcasing the slides itself, on screen with no speakers. Or to what you said, yeah, it's going to be presented online, kind of the same way we're doing it with a screen through a screen share. Every single one of those things have to be designed very, very differently. Now, what's important is that, I had mentioned earlier is that, um, oh, maybe I haven't mentioned it earlier. However, what I do is try to simplify messaging and get the maximum audience retention out of out of the presentation designs that I do. And there isn't a way for me to do that unless I know where my audience is viewing from. So designing for, say, like on screen, the same way that we're doing, I have to be mindful of the type of animations that I might use. We can't have things moving around too much. We have to keep the file size very, very low. Um, you know, Things of that nature helps to have the presentation move along smoothly. Now, when you're presenting out on, with something behind your back, we have other leverages, but we also have to be mindful of font sizes as well. Like the lowest font size I would actually recommend going down to is either a 14 or a 12 point. Those are the things that you have to be mindful of so that people all the way in the back row can see what it is that you're trying to present. Um, and then if you're delivering it, say, via, um, you know, print or as a PDF, through conversion, then I'd have to, make sure that I'm not incorporating any type of animations, any type of movement. All the slides need to be static. And at the same time, I would also have to up the resolution on a lot of the images, just to make sure that, when it comes out on print, you're looking at something that's a little bit more clear. Just because print resolution and digital resolution are vastly different. And that's something that, most of the time only a designer would know. So those are the things that I'd be very, very mindful of. You know, when it comes to like emailing these things to other companies, I'd be, timid about, the type of information that's being broadcasted. Um, I would express concerns about, hey, do you want this type of information to be, to be revealed, or do you want, your outside clients to be privy to this type of information? Because this could be some red tape issue. So things like that, you'd have to be very, very mindful of. What else is there? Yeah, I mean, file sizes become an issue as well, especially when you're trying to deliver it digitally. Um, yeah, I mean, the list really goes on, and honestly, I could probably write a book on the like for each and every category, there would
Yeah.
be very specific rules for them.
Okay. So you've been in this presentation field for a while. What changes have you seen over time in the field of presentation design, and what do you see? How do you see presentation design evolving in the future?
Oh, it's incredible. So obviously, before I started my business, I was doing presentation a little bit, not a lot. I was only getting into it, although I was attending a lot of events. And presentations were done, I would say, poorly, to say the least. Was that they're very static. Nothing. I mean, it's to the faults that I've said earlier. Too low of resolution, too high of a resolution. Clicks weren't moving smoothly. Um, I mean, technology has gone up since. Technology has improved since. Um, but when COVID hit, that was when the dramatic change happened. shows were being canceled. No more public speaking as much. A lot of things were being delivered, via online. So a lot of my designs had to convert to that, which is why I know so much about, presentations, via screen share. And then the do's and don'ts of, what it is that you need to do, in that type of situation. Um, after, well, pretty much after COVID, people were starting to present, out in public again in, outdoor spaces, at meet and greets and at, grand live events. Uh, the shift from that was actually tremendous, but it went back from, it went from, the screen sharing type to just being this whole extravagant thing now. And I just assumed that, these companies were making so much money during COVID that they now have a lot more money to spend. And that was probably the reason why things are a little bit more extravagant. But yeah, those were the small changes, and it's really not with the presentation industry itself, but it was really because of, how reactionary we had to be, with COVID. But in terms of technology and in terms of presentation, PowerPoint hasn't improved their platform for the longest time. Um, Keynote hasn't really done anything special either. However, what's exciting is, the incorporation of AI. So who knows what they're going to be doing with Keynote, with Apple Intelligence, and I have no idea, um, where the plans for Microsoft PowerPoint is. I do believe that Microsoft is doing so well with PowerPoint, and that's the reason why they haven't, um, upgraded their software in the longest time. I see little things here and there, but, it was like nothing they've done really in recent years has been game changing at all. What they have done was, marketed better, getting people more into the platform, making, subscription a lot more convenient. But
Yeah.
that was pretty much about it.
Okay. So for listeners who have listened to this episode, they've learned one or two things from you and they want to continue this conversation. Maybe they want to connect with you, to work with you, or talk more about presentation design with you. What's the best way they can reach you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So they can visit my website, chimeric.com. That's KHIMERIC.com. They can also visit my LinkedIn. And you can direct message me there, or you can just email me. All the informations are there.
Okay. So your website, chimeric.com, will be on the screen. Your LinkedIn, everything will be in the show notes once this episode goes live. So thank you so much for coming on the Tech Your Business podcast.
Thanks so much, Peter. I had a great time.
That's okay. So, for the listeners, did you get any value from this episode? Did you learn something new about presentation design? Did you find out about a way to make your presentations a little less boring and a lot better at communicating your ideas? If you did, please share it with someone else who has the same challenge, who would be interested in learning that same thing. And if you want to be the first person to know when we share helpful content like this for tech in your business, don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe wherever you're seeing K and I, wherever you're hearing us on. We bring out a new episode every week, so you have 7 days to go through the over 100 episodes we have out already. Till next week, keep taking your business. Bye for now.